And we're live. Hi, Catherine.
Hi, Luciana. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another broadcast of what are we doing here?
WLJ, Common Law Under God.
Right. I need to do this a different way. Okay. I just wanted to start because we're going to continue what we had kind of done before about the military and about what war is and so forth. And I want to just start with a verse from the Bible, Proverbs 21:31. The horse is made ready for the day of battle, but the victory belongs to the Lord. And that's sort of a caveat for people who who think that the revenge belongs to them. It doesn't. But we still have to do the footwork.
Exactly.
Okay. And I wanted to start with answering the question, is there a law of war? Well, of course, anytime they're using the term law, it means code. And so it is with the military, which, remember, all branches of the military are private for-profit corporations. And you can look that up on Dun & Bradstreet. But the answer is yes. And I think I've sent you a link on that to the Code of Military Justice. And we can look and see what all that's about, because why is that important to regular people who think that they're not subject to the Code of Military Justice? Because indeed they are, or they could be if they don't rebut a lot of presumptions that went into creating it. So just take a look at, in case, for those who think that the Code of Military Justice would be a good thing, think again. We don't need such a thing. And of course, their existing Code of Military Justice does not apply to living people. It applies to their statutes and codes, to their persons, their legal fiction persons. So when you're acting as a member of the military and you've sworn all kinds of allegiance to the military, you are going to be subject to a military code. But as has been said by many others before me, what we're dealing with in the so-called common pleas courts, or the tribunals that masquerade as courts, we know are private for-profit corporations, but they're also masquerading as military tribunals, whatever that is. And there's all kinds of evidence that that's what they're doing, and that this has been going on probably since at least 1871 or so, when the so-called country became a corporation. You can see that if you look at the, for those of you who can actually, if you go to, I don't know if you can pull this up, Luciana, sort of the table of contents that I think it's called General Provisions, subchapter 01, General Provisions.
Yeah, can you see it?
I'm looking at my version of it rather than on the screen. If it says chapter 01, General Provisions, that's it. And there's all kinds of articles in there and definition. And right from the beginning, you see, just from the title, Article 801, Article 2, persons subject to this chapter. So obviously, right from the beginning, they tell you this applies to persons. That's not us. Unless we agree to be, and we're always signing stuff that says we agree to be, and that's why we have to negate, we have to rebut, we have to refute, we have to rescind the effect of those signatures. I'm not saying that's necessarily a complete solution, but it's a necessary part of getting on with the solution. And then there's just a lot of stuff in there, all of which is subject to hair splitting, and just like their statutes and codes in what they term, the civilian system. So lots of stuff in there about violence, apprehension and restraint, non-judicial punishment, court-martial jurisdiction, involves, resistance and mutiny or sedition, cruelty and maltreatment. I mean, just on and on and on and on. And interestingly, if you look into desertion, which would be where you, without further notice, decide to leave the service, your enslavement to the military. If you're an enlisted man or woman acting as a person, there's a desertion section. And the penalty for that is death.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting? If you, and this parallels to what these people have, this fantasy system these people have created since long ago, since the since the Civil War. Since the Civil War, certainly, what was that always about? And this was written about in 1867 by Lysander Spooner, that where else in the history of law do you have, let's say, a breach of contract? Let's say there is a contract to, you'll be our government and we'll be your people, instead of making God be, the one that governs us.
As it should be.
Yeah. Right. So what Lysander Spoon pointed out, it's pretty obvious, whether you call it a social contract, that contract, what if it's more like a service contract? I contract for electric service, and I don't live there anymore, so I don't want the electric service, so I stop paying, or I just tell them I'm breaching, or I'm not breaching, I'm discontinuing the contract. That's it. I mean, if you're not providing the service anymore, I'm not paying for the service anymore, then I should be able to just leave. But that's not enough. No, they want to call that a breach. Or if you're in contract with the military, they want to call it desertion.
Wow.
And at the most, what is desertion? It's a breach of contract. It isn't actually, because you didn't really have a legitimate contract to begin with. You had, you were coerced. The material facts of that contract were not disclosed to you right at the beginning. So if you find out that you were induced by fraud to sign up, so then you find that out, and some will desert, or they will meet whatever this definition is of deserting. And similarly to the secession that the Southern states participated in after they walked out, the Southern senators walked out of Congress in 1861, they refused to participate in this little social contract experiment. And then Lincoln and the others, decided that the penalty for that would be death. So this is just parallel, and this parallels the kind of thinking that they have. You don't agree with me, you deserve to die. If you don't want to live under my government, the way I govern you, you deserve to die. If you don't want to fight my wars for me, you deserve to die. that's what we've got going on. Has there ever been anything in the history of law about the remedy for breach of contract being death? I don't think so. Never heard of that before. So I just wanted to get that out of the way and to give people a source of reference, because little by little they're sneaking in the principles in this military tribunals into their supposedly civilian courts that aren't courts at all. They're just corporate tribunals. So you're going to be that explains why they consider that they can do anything they want to you, if it's consistent with the military code of what do they call it, the Uniform Code of Military Justice, and this is international, or a pretty close facsimile of it is international as well. So their so-called courts, are there to, impose any sentence, including death, that they choose to. Now, we're not ready to accept from them a death penalty for, let's say, not paying your child support. Pretty close to it, but, we they haven't gotten to that point yet. But they will. They will. I mean, that's if we don't disengage, but we're going to have to disengage and be physically prepared to defend ourselves and our homes. This is a fight we haven't brought on ourselves. They've created their fake statutes and codes, the Trading with the Enemies Act, that defines us to be enemies of the state. And so once you've been defined as the enemy, then they apparently feel free to impose their Uniform Code of Military Justice. That's why. Go ahead.
People can look this up for themselves by going to www.ucmj.us. ucmj.us.
Okay, yeah, good. Okay. So I don't know, we can spend however much time or little time as anybody wants to on this, but I wanted to get into, well, I don't know, is anybody, all right, if anybody who's on now has a comment or question, please feel free to.
I think so. A lot of people are familiar with Mike Gill, and he's been he's on now. I'm going to bring him in.
Okay, yeah.
So Mike, how are you?
Hi, hello.
Thanks for joining us.
Not a problem.
For those who don't know you, do you want to just tell briefly, for those who don't know, who you are and where you're from and what you're doing?
Well, I'm from New Hampshire. Born and raised there. Ran for governor. From there, I built the largest volume mortgage brokerage firm in the United States. Owned the largest thoroughbred racing stable in the world. In fact, I became the world champion in 2005, beating the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. Mm-hmm. So I was an extremely wealthy man, basically through the mortgage industry, only to find a Ponzi scheme that led me to the banking department and the largest money laundering network in the world, to try to do this as briefly as possible. Mm-hmm. But what they're calling the Pandora Papers now, I discovered in 2013 The same year, they offered me $50 million for my silence, and I've shared multiple settlement offers
Yeah.
with that
I've seen
50 million as evidence and proof. And the releases on that settlement are, quite frankly, admissions of guilt as a confession. And what it is it's the IRS is on it, the banking department, the banking commissioner, Department of Revenue, all the entities that audit on a state and federal level, which is the mechanism of how they get away with stealing trillions, not millions, not billions. There's 932 billion directly connected to New Hampshire in the Pandora Papers. The defense budget for this country is 700 billion. So in other words, imagine the size of that industry, which corruption is the largest industry in this country. So I played follow the money. And the money incriminated the IRS for laundering, the Treasury Inspector General for covering it up, the Department of Justice covering it up, the FBI, again, selling protection to the same network. This network has corrupt politicians across this country.
absolutely.
Drug cartels, human traffickers launder in the same network. We have been sold out from top to bottom. So I first exposed them, and then with ideas and planning to incriminate them. All that I'm telling you, President Trump has my evidence, which is why he's been slipping my name out there, which is why he's saying Pandora Papers and going after their money. But I'm telling you, if we don't do this, I see the doors closing.
Yeah. Well, what do you suggest we do? What's the
Well,
solution?
You know what? I have a couple of ideas and a plan, and I'm working to get in front of Congress right now. One plan is ready, follow the money. The thing with the money is the Pandora Papers by principle are LLCs and trusts. Sununu is the gatekeeper of that, Governor Sununu. And then there's small money laundering networks, but this is the money laundering network. This is where the Biden's money is. This is where Obama's money is, Clinton's. And it was built by Bill Shaheen, who was Hillary Clinton's campaign manager, whose wife, Senator Shaheen, was considered a VP candidate for Biden. So in other words, and Maxwell, the reason why she was in New Hampshire, she was a money launderer. She was leveraging them with their money. Who was her lawyer? The same Bill Shaheen. That same Bill Shaheen is on my releases for that 50 million. So what you do is you get the names of those LLCs. Those names are in Congress as we speak. They know who owns those LLCs. So when you've got Biden just the other day saying, show me the money, it's in those limited corporations that they keep flipping. So there's number one. You get that. You turn around, as even in myself as a whistleblower in Congress, and show that evidence. Show the evidence how the IRS and the Treasury are part of this laundering network. The other entity that I'm working on is they offered me 50 million. I'm going to give it all to a law firm that takes the case and goes after the Treasury Inspector General and the Treasury. I have them on a recording saying they put plants and moles in my company, which is out on the internet. I have letters, communications for 3 years that they intercepted, that the United States Attorney Lullen took from me by hand under camera, and he put that evidence in writing. And again, I've posted that. That evidence went to Attorney General Barr and then Sessions before him and the Washington Bureau of the FBI. So that evidence not only incriminates the Treasury and the cover up for the IRS, but it also finds the laundering network that is the Pandora Papers. The recording was taken by Aaron Day, who was working with Project Veritas and James O'Keefe, who gave me the largest cartel in this country, who was laundering their money through that same laundering network of the Pandora Papers. So not only do you incriminate them, but most importantly, the one question none of these criminals can answer is, where'd you get the billions, Joe? There it is.
Don't you
So
think
in
they'd
other
rather
words-
die than cough it up, though?
Well, I think that's why they're indicting Trump. I think they were afraid Trump's going in that direction. And isn't that exactly the direction he's going in? He is going after his money. He was going after his money when he was in office going into the Ukraine. The Ukraine, as we speak now, that I know of, is 32 entities directly tied to New Hampshire and money laundering. They're front and center in the Pandora Papers. You see, that's part of the network of cleaning. It's the removal from this country then back. So they need a corrupt trading partner. Ukraine was a perfect candidate because they needed our aid and support to exist. So at that point, they became those corrupt partners in money laundering, also in human trafficking. Our drug cartels, American drug cartels, are your child traffickers, are your human traffickers, and they launder in the same network. The commonality with all these corrupt politicians, cartels, traffickers, they need to clean their money. So you meet them at the laundry. Listen, I built all those businesses and was successful with a strategy. You go in with a strategy. Like you win or lose before you fight the war. It's the same thing in business. It's the same thing here. That's why the pressure was on Biden. Now they turn around and release Hunter Biden. Listen, the real question is, okay, how'd you get the 5 million? But you ready? Where did you put it? How did you clean it? And why didn't the IRS notice it? When they're checking you for $600, they're missing 5 million. And trust me, it ain't 5 million. It's more like 5 billion. Where did his partner say the money was in? An LLC, a limited corporation. I mean, this isn't hard. I can do this stuff in my sleep.
Yeah,
But
the weak link seems to me to be that, you're talking about going into their corporate tribunals to get this exposed.
Not me. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, you know what? The tribunal that I speak to is the American people. We only have one advantage. Listen, I ain't buying the military. I mean, not for a second. I trust the American people.
Yeah.
I trust the people that are victims and they're trying to put in a police state. I'm saying to the one thing that I know that would unify us, as they have cleverly divided us through race, religion, politics. What we have to do is show the reality of who these people are. There's no more reality check than showing them the billions that they stole from you, the billions that they got from protecting drug cartels and human traffickers. If we can show them that this evil extends from Democrats and Republicans, the politics in this is a show for you. They are all corrupt. This is one industry of corruption. So I think then we can unite the people, and our one advantage is our numbers will then come into play. And then we can force these so-called politicians, congressmen. And I'm showing that that's part of the suing of the Treasury Inspector General. It'll make national attention, and it will call them up and force their hands. Listen, I can tell you this. The other side is nervous, or they wouldn't be trying to stop Trump. Trump does have a path, and it is this path. I've been working with them since 2016. Trump sent General Flynn to see me, and that's been well documented with emails and text messages. My evidence again went to the 2 attorney generals of the United States from the most powerful U.S. attorney in the country. I have 177 case numbers with the Department of Justice in Washington. So, but again, I trust only the American people. And we've got to think about this. Why did they infiltrate social media? Because they know communications is the means for us to get past this. Listen, in war, what's the first thing they cut is communications. That's what they did. That's why they also own social media and control it. I mean, the pharmaceutical industry, who poisons this with opioids for a generation, turns around as board members of the media. BlackRock,
Oh yeah, we
who
know.
owns Dominion,
Yeah,
half
yeah.
owner Dominion, sued Fox, who is owned by BlackRock too.
They're all connected.
Michael,
Right.
Michael, can I ask what year did you become aware of all this and begin investigating and exposing this? Like, what year did this begin for you?
I started in 07, and then I built an organization in 7 and 8 called State of Corruption, where I started meeting with victims and started putting together commonalities of corruption, from family courts to nursing homes to Ponzi schemes. And the thing what I found was that was organized and controlled and owned by the same individuals, the Bill Shaheens. And what they, you know what they did, Shaheen and Go, these law firms, what they did was they infiltrated our courts with their corrupt attorneys. They first went into the AG's office and made those assistant AGs, and the worst of them became our judges. They also turned around and took those individuals and made them department heads within the state: education, employment, Department of Revenue, particularly banking. And what happens is, like, for instance, the governor's position, they have controlled for a generation with between the Shaheen crime family and the Sununu crime family. Sununu goes back to George Bush Sr. In fact, John Sununu was the person in charge of the Fast and Furious. What was that? Mena, Arkansas, guns, money laundering, drug trafficking. Do you know what New Hampshire is? The nice small state, New Hampshire, #1 in opioids, #1 in money laundering, and #1 in manufacturing guns. That's not an accident. That's the Fast and Furious all over again, protected by the wealth, the most powerful elite, and the corrupt politicians in this country. So it was a process. I discovered the laundering network in 2013, and that's when they started offering me, well, the first time 50 million, then multiple times thereafter.
Mike, why didn't you take this money and just move on? A lot of people would have, but what would you say? Why didn't you do it? Because you could have easily.
Well, you know what? I'm assuming a lot of people did, because I haven't found too many people that I have similar situation with. Why I didn't, I started that State of Corruption. I saw the tears of those parents that lost their children in the family court, that went to a Sununu youth detention center where 1,000 young boys were beaten and raped, and that's a class action suit. I saw the tears of the parents that lost their children to drugs. I saw the victims of nursing homes that were poisoned after they signed over all their assets. Listen, I'm not built to allow that. I can't sleep that way. So it didn't, listen, they took 174 million from me. So when I didn't take their 50, they took my 174, and I was worth maybe 400 million. And now I'm homeless in some rat nest of a hotel somewhere, looking out the window to see if my car's getting wired. But you know what? I wouldn't change a thing.
Amen.
Because here I am now with the potential to maybe create something historical.
God bless you. God bless you for that. And many of us are here for the same reason and are in similar shoes such as you are right now because of what's gone on.
Well,
You know what we all have in common? We all can maybe expose a crime and we're all been victims. You know what we all don't have? Anyone to go to for justice. There
well,
is right, not real justice. I mean, the thing with the law, and there is no law.
Mhm.
These judges are corrupt. I mean, this was so easy to corrupt our courts. And listen,
Right.
the corruption, the worst corruption is as far as you go up.
Yeah. I'm glad you said it that way, Mike, because Catherine, is that or is that not the reason we started this podcast? We said everybody, how many years going back, how many years do we know, so much exposure. Everybody is exposing it. Everybody's sharing reels, videos on Instagram. It's exposed because the media is not going to expose it, but we're exposing it. And we know so many that are exposing it. And the exposure continues. And to date, nobody's getting justice. And we decided.
Well, see, that's the thing. Once you've done all this exposing,
we need to talk about a solution because what's being tried, what has been tried last year. And when did you start? 2007, 10 years after, 15 years, still no solution.
I've been trying to get justice in their so-called court since the 1990s. As an attorney. I was a bar member for 42 years before finally resigning in disgust in 2019. But would you agree, Mike, that at this point, if you were to file one of the, some kind of a RICO or something in one of these so-called federal district courts or a class
right in Washington, D.C., yeah?
They're not really courts, right?
You know what? I can tell you this. One, I've got a $50 million settlement that they can have. So on a contingency basis, we just might get someone to stand up or a law office to stand up there. It will also.
That's not even the issue.
But no, let me explain. But it will give us a national attention. And that court, the one thing these courts don't like is eyes on the court, which is why I learned early on to record these multiple times going to court, not with just myself, but with other victims. When you put the light on these people, they fear that. They fear seeing. So in other words, we're going to have a nation watching with indisputable evidence that reaches to the highest level of our government and the Treasury and the IRS. And listen, they already are not in love with the IRS. We tie them to the money laundering of the Pandora Papers. Then we open another page of that exposure of those politicians. Listen, I'm trying my court case in the court of the people.
Well, that's what we're trying to establish, and we're trying to establish our forum in the public courthouse, but we have to get stronger, and we have to eject the current players from the public courthouse. This is not my strategy particularly. This was brought up by other common law activists.
Have you thought about how many years that would take and the frustration of all the people there before you? I personally, I have.
Listen, are you getting frustration? What about filing a lawsuit and finding out the first so-called judge is going to recuse himself, and then you're going to get a continuance, and then there's going to be a second judge, and then he's going to recuse himself.
But I will have a nation watching. I will have a nation watching. And want me to tell you something? That nation is paying attention right now. I've got Trump mentioning me out there. I've been on national podcasts, again on tomorrow too. I have just got last week. I outed Flynn. I was on the phone with Mike Lindell and Trump's lawyers. This is in play. Don't forget the variable here. The variable here is Trump's way to combat this is finding their money. So don't not consider the importance of where I'm going and what I'm doing as a tool for President Trump
There,
to
there,
leverage them.
there's nothing wrong with gathering evidence and exposure, but at this point in time, I mean, don't you think there's been enough exposed about how they're beating and raping our children and our elderly?
Yeah, but this is beyond this. This is beyond this.
This is Federal Reserve notes. Yes, I get it.
No, you don't get it. I've never said Federal Reserve note. I am telling you, this is their money. It is tied to the Ukraine. You don't think people are nervous about getting nuked? You don't think that Trump doesn't know the door to not going to jail just might be in finding their money? There is those. Listen, it isn't the courts. I am telling you, this is exactly where we are in a window that we have never had.
Michael, real quick, we have a viewer I put it up, a viewer's asking, can they see your evidence? And I know you've got tons of your evidence and videos out there.
I mean, I've got 500 videos on State of Corruption YouTube, and 90% of them all have evidence. I'm on Twitter, Mike Gill on Twitter. I posted the settlement offers. I have a list of evidence as described by U.S. Attorney Lullen, by point, that is the Pandora Papers, that is the cartel, that is the corruption of the Treasury and TICA. And you see on that in writing from U.S. Attorney Lullen, giving it to AG Barr in session and the Washington Bureau of the FBI, all in writing. You see the text and email communications with Flynn and me. You turn around and see the first thing he asked was that settlement. I signed my affidavit with Sidney Powell in the same communications. You ask yourself, after Trump lost the election, 336 million Americans, and they come to find me. That, I am telling you, there's a mountain of evidence. You see it. I've got recordings of them putting hits on me to murder me. I mean, Project Veritas recorded that one.
Lack of evidence is not our problem. But establishing liability from that evidence and going through their fake corporate.
Well, they wanted to pay me $50 million. Did you think they thought they were liable?
I'm convinced.
Okay. Well,
others may not be convinced that you have the evidence. I'm convinced you have the evidence. It makes sense that you would have the evidence. And I'm sure you can back it up. But you can't establish liability merely with evidence floating out there on the internet.
Listen, the Department of Justice has this evidence.
I think this can help. And this is recognized even in their fake tribunals if you're wedded to those. And that is notices of liability. And we've been doing those, and they never dispute the facts that we established through a sworn to affidavit attached to the notice of liability. But we don't address that to the common law tribunal. We don't file it anywhere because it's all fake. There's a lot of reasons we don't do that. But we can certainly establish liability that way. Admitted liability, we do 3 notices. This is recognized by their Uniform Commercial Code, which we don't, in common law, we don't recognize that as lawful, but it's also consistent with the law of contract that's been for centuries. So we can do, you can establish your evidence. All you have to do, I'd be happy to help you with a notice of liability addressed to people who have been involved in this. I don't give a rat's rear end what corporation they tied themselves to today or last week or whatever they did, because they're always changing the corporate name. People, probably kind of more like a handful of people are doing this. So we have to get past the corporate BS and get to the people who are doing this and explain what the role of each one was. And if you can help me get a common law grand jury, we can even issue, a common law indictment called a presentment. Now, all it takes is about 25 to 30 people for that. We have a common law court already, and we can issue a monetary judgment, and we haven't gotten far enough to enforce that, but I don't see a particular problem with that if we can use their system to enforce. But as far as the criminal liability, which is what we really want, we have to have more people who are willing to actually enforce a judgment. And we're trying to start very small with small goals and then work our way up. If we can establish a victory, for example, we've got admitted liability in case we're a veteran and his wife, another racket, the property tax racket. You might want to address that too. They had their family home that was paid for taken. They were arrested at their own home and taken out of their home because some foreigner came in and bid up at a tax sale against their property. And that is, when they don't use the mortgage frauds, they're using the property tax frauds to do the land grabs. And we cannot allow that to happen. That would give them some kind of territorial jurisdictional authority. But, we can do it. We can sure do it. I mean, and I'd be happy to help you establish that liability with the 3-notice process. What do you got to lose? Nobody's ever said it's not a valid process. So it's what they base their commerce world on. So, but I don't agree with taking any of this into one of their fake corporate tribunals, because they have a million ways to never address your issue. And when you go into their fake tribunal, you're subjecting yourself.
You have to understand, this is going to be national news. This is going to be national.
I understand very well.
Well, how about this? Have you had any success doing what you're planning on doing previously?
What we've been doing.
Have you had any success so far?
Yes, lots of it. We usually don't even get to the 3rd notice before people cave in. But like I said, we're starting small and moving up gradually.
Well, what I'm doing is far from small, and it's at the tip of everything that's happening right now. This is not a normal situation at hand. It's a buildup for many years, involved with many people, including an ex-president of the United States. Mm. And for instance, Sununu's not running for president or governor because of my evidence. James O'Keefe, who was working with me, the separation between him and Project Veritas is exactly this evidence. The National Security Advisor does not seek me out, and the head of the Department of Intelligence.
I will grant you that you're a very important guy. Okay, I will concede that. I'd be happy to concede that.
You know what? And it's not that I'm an important guy; it's that what I have is important. And more importantly,
you've done a lot of legwork, and
you've covered a lot of evidence.
And I commend you for that.
Yes,
a lot of people do, Mike. A lot of people.
When I ran for governor,
thank you.
They tried to murder me 3 times in 13 days. 2 of those were caught on security camera. The FBI has them all.
What were you running for governor of?
New Hampshire.
New Hampshire or state of New Hampshire? You know the difference?
You know what? I was running for the poor bastards that live in New Hampshire. I was running as an independent, and I was going to put all the bastards in jail. I was going to I had all the cartels. I had their monies, everything. And what they did was
the difference between the original New Hampshire Republic and state of New Hampshire, the private for-profit corporation, that it sounds like you were running for an officer in that corporation.
You know what?
That's the problem.
I was a father of 5 running a multi-million-dollar business. Went to each and every entity for protection to find out that these criminals and these politicians were controlling it. So I was running to wake up a state and hopefully a country. And to me, it didn't matter if it was a corporation or not. I understand where you're coming from, and I don't make light of what you're doing. It's just that, again, that's not my genre and was not my direction. Listen, I had to fight for my life with these guys. I looked these cartels in the face, child traffickers. I called out Sununu face to face. I mean, the banking department, the banking commissioner. I know exactly who they are and what they're doing. I'm listen. I was never that conspiracy guy. I was never even that political. In fact, I ran as an independent from all of them.
I'm not. That's not the point.
What?
That's not the point.
And you know something? I know it's not your point, and I'm not going to argue your point. And personally, probably don't even understand your point. I'm just trying to tell you who and what I was and what I was trying to do.
Yeah. Well,
and I know you've done a lot. You've done a lot.
Yeah, we've done a lot to expose what the evidence is. And there's a lot of stuff to expose in all kinds of areas. And we all have.
And Michael, as many years as you've been going through this, exposing this, and I've seen a lot of your evidence. I've watched a lot of your videos, and I think you're amazing. How much, like, you've seen how long this has gone on. How much longer do you think this could go on?
You know something? I know exactly what you're saying. I can tell you this.
I look back, and when my eyes were open to, oh my God, it's corrupt from the top to the bottom. You can't get justice. They're all involved. They will all protect each other. If you expose what they're doing, they will jump in and protect the FBI, the DOJ. They'll all jump in and protect the police, the judges, the lawyers, all of them that are involved in the crimes being committed against us. So I found this out, I don't know, maybe 7 years ago. And then 5 years ago, I was like, wait a minute. I'm seeing people that this has been exposed on Phil Donahue, the child trafficking, and like 10 years before I found out this was going on. And I'm like, and this is still going on?
Right. I'm
like,
so I know your question well, because I sleep on it constantly. This is what I would tell you. I looked at everything like it didn't exist and had to prove it to myself. So it wasn't like I wanted to believe what I was seeing. It's that I had to prove it. And then I kept going up the ladder. That took time. That took years to finally listen. I made it up to the President of the United States. So in other words, there was a lot of doors I had to knock on. So what I would tell you now, where I think we are, I think we win or lose potentially in the next few months to a year. These people are moving fast. Digital currency, armed IRS agents. I mean, I've got a bad feeling about this, about the direction. How does the few control the many? I mean, they are in full motion. I mean,
I always control the many via corporations. That's how.
What?
The few control the many via corporations. And
well, they do it by guns too. They do it by attaching your paycheck. They do it by taking your house, and they do it through entities like the IRS, which is why it's so important with my evidence that it is targeting the IRS and showing you what they are, and the Treasury, because they are coming financially. That is a means of the control. So what I'm saying is, win or lose, it's done in the last these months coming. The American people are finally waking up. all those years in the beginning and all those years in the middle, people didn't believe this kind of corruption, this kind of evil existed. They
Okay.
are now. So that's the way that people are thinking and understanding and believing, which is also would be a symptom of getting closer to that control point. I think that that's our advantage. So I think at this point, the closer we're getting, the reality is coming in. We either get our country back or we lose our country. I think this next year is going to be historical. And I think, listen, I'm not. I have this thing with Trump. He's got to pull the trigger, and I think by indicting him, is as harsh as this seems, might be the best thing to get us there, because he's fighting for his life too, and going
It's
after
making it look that way anyhow. They're doing a good job of making it look that way.
Well, you know something? I do believe that. I do. I believe. Listen, I'm not okay. I believe that Trump's a problem for them, and I think we can believe that they're trying to get him out of the presidential race. We can logically look at everything that's happening and believe that. So there's a reason why they've targeted him. Even certain Republicans. I know why Sununu has to have him gone, and who's more vocal than him? He is the gatekeeper of the Pandora Papers. Trump knows who he is. You get Biden's money, you get Sununu. So in other words, these people are making their move unilaterally, which is telling, like even Barr. So in other words, it's in sequence. Now he has to make a bold move and expose them with their laundering money. But he is talking about, think about this. When have you been hearing these people talk about LLCs? When have you heard them saying money laundering? And see, that is new within the last year. Not new in the fact that it existed, new that they're talking about it in the terms of hiding money that they took from governments, they took from corruption and graft. So at least there's a bit of an awakening.
People don't want to wake up if they don't see a solution. They're frightened. You're
right.
Crazy.
You're right. That's why I'm giving them a solution. That's why I am different. That's why. Listen, I am a strategist. Where did I come from? What did I do? How did I become so successful? I mean, listen, I had zero. I went to school to be a priest. I had nothing and became worth close to $500 million. Beat the wealthiest men in this world in the sport that they love from nothing. So I brought something to the table. And the only thing that is insight and strategy and a little balls. And I put them all on the line because I saw a glimmer of hope, a small light, and I went for it. And I've never let go of their wallets in all these years. And at this point and at this time, with all the variables, all the moons are in line, this works or it doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, they will kill me. I guarantee it.
And they've come after you before, as you said, and you've got video of it. They've tried to kill you. I mean, personally, we know a few people also in hiding because of what they're exposing, and we speak to them daily, and we know their lives are in danger. Now, how do you think that you escaped their attempts to kill you?
I can tell you those 3 times, they were serious about murdering me then. And then what was happening was on the 4th one was Kill Gil. Kill Gil was recorded by Project Veritas. A few million people heard that within the first 2 weeks. So, and then all of a sudden at the same time, the Department of Justice, Lullen, took all that evidence from me. So they knew that was in play. So I think the
Answer
visibility.
the question. She asked you, what's the solution?
Or how do you?
No,
How,
she
where do
asked
you
me.
think?
She
Where
just
do you
asked
think?
me.
Yeah,
Hold
where do
on.
you think your
Didn't
protection
you ask
came
me
from?
why I'm still alive?
Yeah. Where did your protection
Hold
come
on
from?
then.
Do you think?
Yes, that's what she asked me.
I thought she was asking you what you
Well,
thought was
she
the
didn't.
solution.
And that was the question before. You just missed the last question. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
You
I did.
okay?
That was before, and just now I asked with the attempts that they've made on your life, and it's been exposed.
Right.
Where do you feel your protection came from?
So being out in the public and having this evidence with the Department of Justice and Trump, I think protected me for at least a while.
It helps.
After I gave the evidence to Flynn, after January 6th, I disappeared for a year. No electronics, no.
I remember that. I remember writing on your page asking, "Has anybody seen Mike? He hasn't been around." And yeah, we were concerned.
That's why I had to disappear, and I did that. And when I came back very public. Now I'm getting on all these podcasts. I know the danger, but I know it's close. But I knew it was also my window to go back in what I had. So these times are dangerous right now. In particularly, again, as I'm talking to you, I'm looking at my car to see if anybody's going to screw it or wire it.
I know.
I'm not kidding.
Are you a man? Are you a man? Can I ask? Are you a man of prayer?
I am. I don't pray for God to take care of it. I pray for strength and wisdom and courage. I do that. Listen, I went to school for 5 years to be a priest. My mother was the catechism teacher of the town of Salem, New Hampshire. But I'm also rational and to the point where that bad things happen to good people, and we've got to stand up and fight. So as much as I am all that, I'm a fighting SOB too.
There you go. Good. And we're glad, thank you. We're glad to have you on. And I think that we have some information pertaining to Ohio that that New Hampshire and Ohio may have some coincidences, and we'd like to speak to you further. So just keep that in mind, okay?
Okay, I'm open. I'm working with the people of Arizona frequently at this point, and what we found is the methodology of the takeover with the courts and the AG's office, the Secretary of State, is common to exactly of what's gone on in New Hampshire. I believe it's this way in pretty much every state. And what Arizona had was those same LLCs and trusts were having the Sinaloa cartel buying up the real estate and businesses and like car dealerships, just as they did in New Hampshire. And they are discovering that. And they're going after these politicians with their hidden LLCs, exactly what I'm doing. And we're kind of working together as far as how to uncover these pieces. So it's my goal. It was never New Hampshire. It was the country, was to try to create a domino. The fact that I found this money laundering network and had it be the size that it was, and the fact that it became the parent Pandora Papers was not intentional. It was just what I found I thought was of substantial size, but I didn't know it was the largest one in the world. Sometimes you're a victim of circumstances, and fate has a way of knocking on your door. And at that point, you decide whether to answer it or not.
Exactly. And it's time to make, you make a choice at that point, which road you're going to take. And I think you've taken the right road. Definitely. Thank you, Michael. Thank you so much. And we're going to be speaking to you real soon. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you both.
Okay, thank you. We also have Tracy T. Patriot.
Hi guys, how are you?
Good, Tracy. How are you?
Good. Hey, is Mike still on?
He is.
Can we bring him on also because it ties kind of
Yes.
together? And then, so what I'd like to do is,
He is on.
great.
He is on.
I'd like to just introduce myself real quick. I'm Tracy. I am a parent advocate, been fighting CPS and the transgender movement, corruption on my daughter. However, you are right there. It's a war on Americans. They went after me because I would not call my daughter preferred pronouns. I wanted a faith-based counselor, and I watch, quote, I have the evidence, Republican videos. Okay, so this is a war on all of us, no matter where you are. And I asked Mike if he would come on today because we have a very dear friend, John DeSecco, veteran from New Hampshire, that was unlawfully arrested. Multiple charges from resisting arrest to trespassing to driving without a license, that kind of thing, which brings us to the solution. I think you guys are talking another solution to bring forward on the common law and the assemblies, which I think you guys were talking about that earlier. So
That's what we're doing. Yeah.
yes. So I want to kind of tie it in together because I think Mike's on the other side, but we have different solutions to bring in and we all work together. That's how we're going to unite the people, because without uniting the people, we have no assemblies. We have here or there, as you guys see, it's hard to connect the people. But once their eyes are open, like Mike was saying, nation stage, right? The people are going to start looking for the solution, and we have the solution. We can restore the republic back to the people. Regarding John, he is in New Hampshire, Dover, New Hampshire, at the Stratford County District 7th Circuit Court on Thomas Street. He has a court hearing on Monday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Judge Bradley. I have a phone number. We really need to get public eyes on his because he has been using common law and has the judge that has agreed to use the jurisdiction in common law with his paperwork that he filed.
What phone number do you want to
I
share?
can see
It's
common law stuff.
855-212-1234. And also if we can get court washers in New Hampshire at the court in person would be awesome. We're still trying to find out if it's going to be online at all, if we can get on, and I will give you that information once I get it. But they have him in a mental ward. They're tasing him. They're not treating him well. He filed for an emergency hearing and they still have not given it, which shows you, again, once the justice system that is not abiding by even common law at this point. However, he's the first one that would be setting precedents by using and getting them to omit a common law jurisdiction. So it's going to be all eyes on because this could set precedents for all of us.
It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way.
Unfortunately.
But
You want to, because Catherine,
I've seen his document, the 6-page document that I think someone shared with me. Yeah, he's still one of theirs. It's like it's still the turf thing that people don't understand. He's one of their, as a veteran, he's a person. He's a 14th Amendment person slave. All soldiers are slaves.
he's not. He actually rescinded all of his signatures. He's actually a American national. So he is
American national is another kind of slave. And don't
Okay.
ever let anybody take you down from a man or a woman. That's what God created. God didn't create American nationals. Okay. And if we don't start turning to God, we're going to keep having what we have. God gave us a directive right at the beginning to take control of our own, of everything he created. And that includes, managing any system of justice. What we have, what you're calling a system of justice isn't a system of justice.
correct.
It's a private for-profit corporation, which corporations are unlawful by definition.
So, Catherine, I know a lot of people that are on here. They don't know your background. Would you mind telling everybody what your background is and where you came from, where you got to the common law, and how that comes into play? Because I think a lot of people are going into the courts, and that's the problem. They are going.
Yes.
They're in one jurisdiction and the other, thinking that they're gonna, get out of it. And I think that's a lot of the problem, where they're, calling everybody their sovereign citizens, whatever it may be. I don't think people really understand. So would you please enlighten people on that and your background? Because I think that would help people understand.
I was a bar member from 1977 until I resigned in 2019. And I did a lot of divorce stuff. And toward the end, I helped the people of Chillicothe, Ohio, to get rid of the traffic surveillance cameras that they had. So I started getting more into public stuff. We used a provision of the their Ohio Constitution, their state of Ohio Constitution, their corporate state of Ohio Constitution. And we were actually able to get a victory. We got the cameras out, where the most of the other cities who want the cameras have them. So I learned quite a bit from that. You couldn't do it that way anymore, because they've eliminated the initiative process. They've changed it enough to where you can't really use it. Everything they give you, you think they're giving you in their statutes and codes, are corporate policies. They are not law. They're their statutes and codes. They're for the purpose of furthering their corporate enterprise, which is a criminal enterprise. They're just a bunch of gangsters who have joined together to form this legal fiction. They call it that, a legal fiction called a corporation. It doesn't exist. It's their imaginary friend, and that's what they use. They use our gullible belief that corporations are real to hide behind. They aren't real. In fact, if there were to be such a concept as a corporation, it would be unlawful, because what does a corporation do? Why do people incorporate to begin with? Why are there LLCs like Mike Gill was talking about? There are LLCs and other corporations so that they can harm other people and create liability without getting any of it on them, without getting blowback, without liability. Limited liability corporation. So their shareholders, their investors, their officers, their employees, none of those people are actually going to ever be responsible for what they do, as long as you believe in the concept of a corporation. We got to get rid of that. We got to stop believing in that. And they help us, because in their so-called case law, they admit that corporations aren't real. They're fictions. Corporations have no brains, no eyes, no mouth, no hands,
Right.
and do no thing. So why are we submitting our disputes to a fantasy person, that doesn't really exist, and
Right.
and has the purpose to harm people without consequence? And they admit that a corporation cannot be a court. A court is a sovereign, an entity for sovereigns. They're not sovereigns. We, the people, are sovereigns, and they have admitted that we are the sovereigns. And don't use the term sovereign citizen, please.
Right.
Sovereign means that you are the boss. Citizen, if it's the little c citizen, means that you are a slave.
Right, because they played with all the words, and they changed all of them without everybody knowing.
Now, do they have authority to do that? They don't.
Correct.
But still, if we buy into it and we play on their turf, we're going to play by their rules. You go into Walmart and you tell them how they should be washing their floors. You think they're going to listen to you? I don't think so. You're not the boss of what they do.
So Catherine, the process of the grand juries, we wake up the people like Mike with the nationwide. We unite together and teach them how the process works, how we form the grand juries, how the people take back the country is the way we restore the republic. Correct?
Well, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to have enough to do a grand jury, and we're not going to wake up everybody. We're just not. There's too many people that are stuck in one way of thinking. They're going to take back the republic. What republic? Did we ever even have one? Each of the states were republics. That's how it
Right,
was all.
but using Mike's voice nationwide to bring in another solution to addition to what he is trying to do, I think that is big. That's a
I
big
think
platform.
he's big as exposing what the evidence is. But, and that can be established with the notices of liability. You serve the people and you tell them you did this and you did that, and they will not deny it. I've done probably about 25 or 30 of these now, and they never deny it.
And they get plenty of chances to deny it.
Go to our
And
website and you'll see.
yeah,
Right, it'd be nice to just, instead of going in circles, being able to know something that is working, because there are a lot of people out there trying to do this. However, they're not telling people the whole truth, so they're leading you some way down the right way, like the State National, Anna Von Reitz, or the Keep Living Way, or the David Straight, or what. Nobody is doing it
About
the
that.
exact same way that it's supposed to be done, and that is the issue. I think, though, getting the word out of the successes and the goal, and with Mike Gill and what he's doing, people can get on board. So I'm about uniting all the people, and I can see where we can all work together, and that's what it's going to take. Because I've been doing this, trying to restore the republic for 3 years with assemblies, and it's like
I've been
nobody.
doing it for about
Yeah.
40, and
Yeah.
and I don't see people all uniting. And I'm not going to unite with somebody who wants to lead people to jump off the nearest cliff. I'm not.
Right, exactly, right.
And that's okay, because I think we have to start thinking more locally instead of this grandiose, egotistical, top-down BS.
Yeah.
We're going to save the country. Oh, not just the country, the world. Not just the world, the universe.
Well, I thought I could save all the children too, but I can't
Yeah.
even save my own daughter at this point. So I would love to, chat with you on that off air at some point.
If
I've
you can't
agreed.
even keep your car from being repossessed or destroyed, how are you going to save the planet? I don't
Right.
get that.
Right.
So-
I've agreed with you, Catherine, on that. Since at least a year ago, I thought, because I was all over the place talking to people from different states, even different countries, and this has to be done. And finally I said, you know what, we got to stop with this big grandiose saving the world. Let's start here in Ohio. Okay. Let's start here in Ohio, and let's see what we can do here, because we're getting distracted with so many other states and so many. Let's start here, see what we can do here, and then move forward. So that's what we're focusing on.
I think the people
right
are
now.
awake, and I think people just need the direction. So if they hear the solution and the process of what is doing, I think we're at a place where people are looking. And then on top of it, we have people ready to go, right? So there'll be enforcement behind it, where before there was no enforcement because
People
it
that are
wasn't in
ready
their
to
neighborhood.
go, will those people correct their status as slaves? Will they sign something that they're not a slave anymore? Will they?
I think a lot of people will. Yes, I do. I think we're at that point.
I'm in trouble with that. People will say, "Oh, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it." And then I don't hear from them.
Well, I think
Well,
that
it's
a lot of
how
people,
simple is the process? Because a lot of the other groups, right? It's like 100 steps they want you to do. So
No.
what is the actual process to do
It's
that,
not.
Catherine?
It's right on
that
our website.
Anybody could understand. You know what I'm saying?
Let me tell you something about the Anna Von Reitzes and the David Straights. They have nothing to do with us, and they have nothing to do with common law. They are running a scam. The powers that shouldn't be already know that common law under God is the solution, and they have to do everything they can to sabotage it, trivialize it, and make people think it's so complicated. It isn't
Right. And that's where people get turned off, and they don't understand on the process that they're trying to tell them to do, and they're going in their system with their paperwork, right?
Yeah, you don't go in the system with their paperwork, and you don't listen to the Anna Von Reitzes of telling you how complicated it is. They get into, and we probably should have posted that that video about water and how they have this fantasy. The criminals that are running things for now, they have this fantasy about how they control the water. Oh, they have to control the water because it's about commerce, and we have to have international trade and international commerce. So therefore, we have to be in charge of admiralty, and then from there, we can be in charge of everything because everybody's born through the birth canal. Are you kidding? I mean, it's nonsense. But people like Anna von Reitz and David Straight, and there's many others, they buy into the nonsense and try and play along with it, try and beat them at their own game when it's nonsense.
So what is the actual process? Can you tell the people what the process is and how simple?
Right there.
Okay,
This
awesome.
is how you correct your status. She says, I
Okay.
should put it on the screen. First, you revoke your. First of all, this is how it took us a while to get into it. It took us a while to get ourselves enslaved, several generations actually, and it's going to take a little bit to get us out. The 3 status correction documents we require to be on our court, and there are others you could do too. We don't use terms like American national, or American state national, or this. No. We call ourselves men and women because that's what God called us, and because their corporate statutes and codes don't mention the terms men and women. Why is that? Because they know they have no authority over men and women, only over persons.
I agree. Yep.
And people don't. Most people think a person is in their statutes and codes means one of them. It doesn't. It doesn't unless you allow it to. So stop allowing it to be used for you. Yeah, we got 3 documents, and they're each about a page or 2 in length. And one of them is to rebut the presumptions created at the beginning with their birth documents they created for you. Didn't used to be that people had birth certificates. And another way, the other 2 documents are the rebuttal of, the rebuttal of the birth documents, and then the rescission of voter registration. And I've been, if you look at my first 2 or 3 broadcasts, we go into this in more detail. But by revoking your signature on the voter documents, voting and being registered as a voter, registering should raise red flags in the minds of everybody. Registering means whether you register your child, whether you register your car, whether you register yourself as a voter, it's all giving ownership to the one you're registering it to. And they let you use it for a while if they feel like it, if you're doing a good job in their opinion. But it's not, you give up rights when you register. It's not the same as recording, which you ought to be recording in your family Bible. That's the only place you need to record, if at all. But it's 3 documents: the voter rescission, the birth certificate rebuttal, and repudiation of the presumption that they have that you're a corporate United States citizen slave. Now, let's be clear on the terms, because they get you by word art. And the term United States, or sometimes even United States of America, United States Corporation, there's various entities, and you can look them up. You can look up United States Congress if you think that they're for real. They're not.
Well, the original was the United States for America, and they've changed all the entities in all the documents since then. You're right. They've changed multiple times.
Yeah, the United States, the Constitution, you're referring to the 1781 original Articles of Confederation.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
For the United States of America. Correct. And Congress assembled.
And you can see where they've changed it in the middle of the documents on all of their documents. They've just kept adding entities and dissolving one and then opening another.
Yeah.
So how
And
do we take their money and dissolve all their corporations?
we don't have to dissolve their corporations. In fact, we shouldn't try to dissolve their corporations. Why should we clean up their mess? Their corporations protect them, at least in their system. So why should we there's a maximum law. You don't administer that which you did not create. Did we create their corporations? No, they did.
Right. So we'd be running parallel. We'd be running parallel to the corporation, correct? Is that what you're saying? They would have like their side, we would have our side, whoever wanted to come on board.
Yeah. Those who like being slaves, and some people do, you got 3 hots and a cot, and you're one of their slaves, if you can get that. And I'm not going to unite with those people. I wish them well, but they don't have the right idea. But I'm not too happy with the Articles of Confederation, but it's nothing like as bad as the 1787 Constitution, which gave them they gave themselves the interstate commerce power, and they use it for everything. And they started really using it bad in the 1950s, 60s. There was a Heart of Atlanta motel case where they said, because they said, you can't regulate us. We conduct our business in Georgia, and they weren't a corporation. They had removed their ties from the corporate structure. And they said, but you get your napkins from South Carolina or wherever it was. So we can regulate interstate commerce, and we're in control over you and everything else you do. That was a big mistake. And actually, I think I sent you, Luciana, the link. I think we ought to post that, the link about what really happened with the enactment of the 1787 Constitution, the one where their Constitution we're still afflicted with, that they don't pay attention to anyway.
I do, if you don't mind me asking a question, because a lot of people think if Trump comes back, that he could restore it to the 1776 back to the Republic. Do you want to comment on that? Why or if that is even possible?
Let me answer by way of analogy. They have always wanted, from the days of Alexander Hamilton, they've always envisioned this landmass as being like a big plantation that we would work and we would give value to, and that the ones at the top, the Freemasons and the other secret society members, would administer, and they would reap the benefits. So, and it's convenient to do that in a corporate format. So I lost my train of thought. Well, your question again was?
What's the elephant in the room where Trump can come back and restore the Republic?
Yeah, well, I don't know that there ever really was a republic, but there were a series. The states were always considered sovereign nations. You know that, right?
Yes. And I know there were presidents before George Washington. I think there were 14, if I'm not mistaken. And they didn't hold office, for 8 years. It was, I think, a year at a time.
I don't know how they manage that, but if you have this plantation system and the slave master at the top and we're at the bottom, then what difference does it make who's the CEO of that corporation? Aren't you still enslaved?
Correct.
The corporate structures can facilitate lots of bad stuff. And the corporate structure is one of the most destructive of structures you can have. After all, it legalizes criminality. So if you have whatever the personality is of who holds office in the in the plantation, who's the master? You're still the servant, the slave. And it wasn't supposed to ever be that way. And they've admitted it wasn't supposed to be that way back in 1793.
Yeah, I believe they had where a corporation, they only had 1 year contract, whatever, to make it very limited, and then they just took it all over, right? So that's the problem. And it isn't up to the people because the people don't have a say whether they vote or not.
The people do have a say whether they vote or not. You can extricate yourself from that system that only gives the illusion that you have some control. You don't.
Right. That's what I meant is in their system, you're right. The illusion that our vote counts and it doesn't. It matters who's in control or who's blackmailed or and who they want in office if who's going to get in office.
We're supposed to be in control. Imagine that. Self-government. We are, but you can't explain that to people who they're not even able to control their own household. They're not even able to control their own food supply. They're not able to control their own ways of exchanging value for goods and services. If they don't know how to do that, how are they going to do anything else? And if they're dependent on the Lord and Master, the self-appointed Lord and Master corporate executives, then they're not going to get anywhere. You know, they're going to be constantly fighting over that. And the personality who occupies that slave master role is not going to matter. And I mean, apparently Trump tried to, lighten the boot a little bit off of our necks. And we see what kind of price he's paying for that. If that's in fact what's happening. I don't discount, and I don't think we should discount the possibility that this is all a stage production for us.
I agree.
Yeah.
We have to look at all angles and use discernment because we don't really know. I mean, they said Hitler was, we killed Hitler. What was he? He was alive the whole time, right? So they could use the green screen, their doubles, whatever, to make, it looked like there was a rest or whatever. So we really don't know. I mean, I got that hope that maybe there's something, but other than that, it's we the people, and that's where it's at.
We the people, those of us who wish to be free, and you're right in that, there are two separate systems, and we need to stop traipsing over their system, stop going into their private corporate tribunals and telling them how they're supposed to run them, because they're running them the way they should run them as a corporation. They're making a profit. If that means killing and torturing children, that's what they'll do. That's what they're supposed to do as corporate officers. That's what you got. So if we don't want to be in a system like that, let the people who like that or think they don't have a choice, let them do that. I don't want to unite with them. But that's why we're creating our own courts, and we have every right to do that. And that's explained in detail on our website. We're the sovereigns. The sovereign decides what the structure is going to be in their little neck of the woods, in their community or whoever. We claim territorial jurisdiction over the Ohio Republic, not state of Ohio. State of Ohio is a private for-profit corporation that we didn't create. We don't administer it. We don't try and tell them what to do in their corporation. However, when their corporate officers step onto our turf and start messing with our children, then we have authority. And once people start to understand their authority, they will help us instead of just watching and while we do all the work. And Luciana there has done a massive amount of work to get the website up and running and functioning. It helps us keep track of everything. It's just been amazing. And
have you seen? I think it's Texas is now starting their own common law court of record, and I believe did Troy share with you the website that he's helping create for them?
Oh, I didn't know I had put them together. I didn't know they
Yeah,
had.
I know. I'll share it with you later, but it's amazing. It's
Awesome.
beautiful. I told him, maybe you can help us make ours a little better, because now theirs looks, because I'm just doing the best I can. He's an expert at this, and wait till you see it. So he said he'd be happy
There's
to
a
help
lot
us
of
as far
talent
as-
out there, and
Yes,
Yeah,
there is.
there is. We had a comment that I was interested in our YouTube, from the people watching on YouTube, and Brian Michael said that, which is a great victory. That there was recently, I think it was in a few months ago, a $45 million settlement that Ohio gave to Dean Gillespie, who was wrongfully imprisoned for, I don't know, 20 years or something. And he was helped by the Innocence Project and such. And yes, that is a great victory. But what I had said to Brian Michaels, who asked the question, was no one should have to wait this long, number one, for justice.
right.
Okay. And number two, sure, this is great. He finally got out, and he finally, got 45 million for what they did to him. But here's the kicker. The prosecutor who withheld evidence in this innocent man's case sat back and watched him sit in jail for 20 years, knowing he was innocent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. He got paid now, but he lost 20 years of his life. He lost
Right.
family members. He lost,
Right.
raising children and watch them grow up and all of this. And where's the justice when that prosecutor is still walking free?
Right.
We can
Exactly.
We the people have the power to change that.
Exactly. That we, the people, have the power to change that. If a prosecutor is proven to be withholding evidence that puts someone in prison, that prosecutor should take that person's place and go to prison. How dare you? How dare you? And how dare the state of Ohio or any other state allow someone who is employed by them to continue walking the streets free when they have evidence that that person working for the state withheld evidence that would have shown that person to be free, but they sat back and
I'll tell you why, and that is because he was a loyal corporate employee generating income from the prison industrial complex. By the more wrongful incarcerations you create, the better of a corporate employee you are. I bet he got a raise.
Well, each case that they make, whether it be criminal, family court, or whatever, we have the audit reports from John DeSecco's ex-wife, that is a senior auditor of New Hampshire, that shows they get this, guys, 66.6% bonus for the departments for every person that handles that case.
Mhm.
And we have it all. So that's on top of their salary. That's an incentive bonus from the caseworker all the way to the judges.
Yeah. Well, without a solution, though, you're going to have people say, that's really awful. And then, click to the next thing they see.
Right. Yeah, exactly. On the couch.
Yeah.
Catherine, you might want to comment on this too. Another person mentioned that's watching right now on YouTube. They said they haven't seen one success with the notices of liability, and I thought maybe you could just explain to them a couple of successes that we have seen. For instance, you had a success with the notices of liability in a situation with an insurance company, didn't you?
Yeah.
And you're right.
Yeah, we had a building, and a couple of cars crashed into it and did some damage. And we were told, and one of the cars was driven by a cop. So naturally there was no investigation or anything, but we had a witness. And so we did our notice of liability, and I think we served the first one, and then the second one again. And we didn't know, who we didn't care who it was up to the drivers to decide who was at fault. We just knew that the two of them caused damage to our building. We served the people involved. They told us beforehand, oh, you'll have to go through State Farm. You'll have to jump through this hoop. You're going to have to jump through that hoop. And we did notices of liability. And by the second notice, we got a check from State Farm. We didn't ever go through for what we asked for. Not asked for, what we told them they were liable for. And if they disagreed, tell us how. And they didn't disagree, like they never do. And so we got a check for that. There's a fellow that, and this is just small stuff. I mean, it's not big and grandiose, but
big and grandiose is coming. It is coming.
Right.
Well, because I serve notice of liabilities too, and each individual, and they just ignored it. So I filed a insurance or claim against their bonds and their insurance company. And what are they doing? It did make it to the Attorney General's office and the senior attorney. However, it's just sitting there, and instead of addressing it, once again, they ignored it, and then they sent people out to my house to try to take me out. So
no, nobody came. Nobody tried to retaliate against us at all. But there's people who are doing so-called notices of liability. And I look at them, and it's just one damn thing after another that they're doing wrong, and they're enslaving themselves further, and it's a nightmare.
except for wording matters, how you address it, who you say it to.
Or they're filing the notices with the courts, you know.
Yeah, that's a common mistake.
Very.
Yeah, we don't file into their sick corporate system. We serve the people.
So when you are filing in their system, you're basically, you just put yourself in their jurisdiction, right?
We're not filing.
I get that, but if
she's saying when you do file, you're jumping back into their jurisdiction, pretty much saying you have jurisdiction over me, so I have to file this with your court.
Yeah, we don't do that. That's not part of the 3-notice process. So that's why you got the retaliation, probably. You have to know what you're doing and why it works. Don't just do something that somebody handed you to do saying, oh, it'll work. You have to understand. Don't do anything if you don't understand why you're doing it.
And so, and people should know, and Catherine, you're amazing. Catherine has made herself available to anyone who wants to contact her by email or phone, so that she can explain to you if you have questions. You know, she's there. She's available like 90% of the time. You know, she of course needs time for herself, but you're available way too much, Catherine. I mean, you have such a big heart to help people, and she's telling you, call me. You know, ask me the questions that you have. She's a veteran, a former attorney of 40 years who's now exposing all this corruption. Who better to get information from and ask questions to than someone who's been in the muck of this nonsense and corruption for 40 years and finally said, this is what's going on, I'm out. So thank you, Catherine, and everyone.
I would ask for people to look at our website and not just give it a glance and shut it down, but actually look at the documents. And the other big thing that sabotages people's 3-notice process, which they're probably doing according to the dictates of David Straight or Anna von Reitz, is that they didn't properly correct their status. And I know Anna von Reitz very much makes sure that people never correct their status correctly and dig themselves in further. So don't be telling us that that common law doesn't work when there's a concerted, probably corporately funded effort to sabotage what's being called common law that isn't. I know Anna von Reitz uses the American State National label. Like I say, God didn't create any American state nationals. You want to do this without God? Have at it. But I don't think it can be done.
No, it won't.
Right.
It cannot be done without God.
So have they recognized your status? the corporation? Have they recognized it?
They never recognize anything, but we've still established.
Well,
Got it.
I'll tell you what. For me, and well, mostly no, they don't respond. But you do send the document, your status correction.
You don't want them to
in,
respond.
and you get you have confirmation that you did send it. Okay, you have to have that confirmation that you did send it and they did receive it. Now, for me, the Office of Voter Registration did respond, and they sent me a letter saying that they got my rescinding of my voter registration, and that they removed me from the officially removed me from the voter registration. So for that's the only response I got.
Okay.
As for, the notices of liability, those are different notices. We have seen people that had warrants, so-called warrants, which are just assaults.
Right.
Warrant is just a threat that we're going to hurt you bad, and we're going to send this out electronically to everybody in our corporation so they can all have carte blanche to hurt you. And we have with the pre-notice process, after the first or second notice, we've seen people get released. Now they're never
Really?
going to.
So if somebody is in court, or in their system right now being held, you would send them liability notices, and we should
not yet. Most people who are being held in their system still they're in a bad place. They're in a bad place because it's very difficult to correct their status from their dungeon.
Right.
It's better to have it corrected beforehand. Only when you're a free man or woman are you going to be able to, with authority, send a notice of liability to them as people.
Okay, say to get out, they I don't know, plead to a lesser charge and then come out, change their status, and then be able to send notice of liabilities. Would that be a better route, basically, instead of going in there?
It may be. That's an individual decision. We've got a man we're advocating for in Nevada who has actually been offered, after we served the first notice, he's been offered, we'll let you out on house arrest with an ankle monitor. And he's like, I'm not doing it. And they're killing him. They are killing him. And speaking of Roger Hillegas, I wanted to bring out, what they're doing. We've all heard horror stories. I won't go on about it, but he's locked up in the Reno County Jail, and which is another corporate facility, and run by a man named Mark Bello, Bello, and then part of the torture that they inflict is committed by a corporation known as NAPHCARE, NAPHCARE, Inc. It's a corporation out of Alabama. They say, we're a family corporation. Yeah, are they a family corporation like Johnson & Johnson that torture people in psych facilities?
Right.
But there are people that are incorporating these so-called corporations, and we do have authority over them, and that's who gets the notices. Once we've corrected our status enough to do the notice. But that's an individual decision, as far as what you want to do. If you have signed your name to documents while you were locked up, you have made statements while you were locked up in their corporate dungeons, or threat of being placed in their corporate dungeons. Is that a lawful signature? Is that a binding signature? Is that real consent? Of course it's not. You got a gun to your head. That's not consent.
Right. And now you're not even have to sign anything. They're just putting it in electronically. So you don't even get to sign.
They like to extract a signature if they can. you'll be locked up in our prison, in our dungeon, and tortured and probably killed, or you can sign this document saying you did all this and this, and you can confess.
Right. And that's why that Johnny, he's not consenting to any of it, right? So that's why they got him in the mental ward.
He's already done so. There's some problems with what he's been doing. For one thing, he's probably filing them, isn't he?
Yeah, he's filing them. Yep.
Yeah. So he knows a little bit.
Yeah. It's hard when you're in the system because you don't have access, and the only way to get out is to go in their system. There's no other way out unless it's public opinion. I've seen people be released for that case, but using their
but it's
stuff
less
against
and
them.
less easy to do it that way.
Yeah.
But
So if somebody is pulled over, their status correction is changed. I mean, what do you do? They're going to take. Looks like they're not following anything, so they're just taking them anyways.
Yeah, and there are things you can learn to do that can improve your odds of not being an easy mark. Let's stop being easy targets. And knowledge is is power, and it's not perfect. But I mean, if somebody's truly a psychopath and they're determined that in spite of, a credible possibility that they are themselves going to be liable to you, that they continue to commit crimes against you, there may not be anything you can do about it. But as we, the people, get who understand this process, get more numerous, it's going to be less difficult for us to be. It's going to be more difficult for them to commit their crimes. They have to see how they're going to look in the eyes of the public, and how they might be jeopardizing their own job, their own bank account, and their own liberty by continuing. And that's why we need to have these structures in place. They understand structures. And even in biblical times, there were assemblies that, at the time of Moses even, and these are definitely recognized, and they recognize them in their system, because a court, according to their definition, is a sovereign in his suit. That's their Black's Law 4th edition definition. So
the Amish was able to create their own society, right, and run parallel with the corporation. So it can be done. It's until they sign contracts to say the wrong contracts, where now the corporation basically has control over them because they didn't know, or they were sold out on what they were doing.
Who were sold out on what they were doing?
As far as the Native Americans or the Amish, they had their own societies until they let the government, involved again in their contracts.
Yes, they did. The Amish were particularly bad about. They could have beat that public education, that forced public schooling for their children, instead of compromising themselves and ending up with probably the legal fees and everything else to take it up to the U.S. Supreme Court, Yoder versus Wisconsin. And they reached a compromise. They shouldn't have had to have done that. And we don't. Those of us who don't want to send our children to the indoctrination centers that they call public schools should understand how to protect ourselves and our children, and get started with our own education systems that are now known as homeschooling associations. A lot of those are still only halfway. They're half free and half slave, because they're still giving they're still reporting to the corporate public school system. And
so you're talking like the private membership associations. Is that what you're speaking of as far as?
Some of them are private membership associations, some of them are not. Now, just because you call yourself a private membership association doesn't mean you're golden. I mean, you can look at Amos Miller in Pennsylvania, the Amish farmer who got raked over the coals, is still getting raked over the coals by the Fraud and Death Administration, the FDA. And he had some kind of a private membership association. I did not see the documents, but he ended up getting browbeaten, and he hired an attorney, and of course we know what that leads to. And you get an attorney, you are presumed incompetent or a ward of the state. So he did that. He started signing a little bit. We'll leave you alone if you sign this. Oh, well, but what about this too? Sign this. And he kept signing and signing and signing, and now he's going to lose his farm. He's going to lose his business, and the people who were getting organic products from him, clean produce, they're losing too. And,
so I know that there's people out there talking about trust you can hide your assets in there, and you from an attorney side, what is your opinion on trust, or if you can do a common law trust or anything else that would have protection for you? Because if you're under the corporate trust, is that really protection? Because they can take it at any time, correct?
There's really no, people call it that, but there's really no such thing as a common law trust. I mean, you can treat it as a contract, and there's certainly such a thing as a contract in common law, but trusts are an equity concept, and they, at least historically, have called equity something different than law. It's supposed to be. I don't think we need equity. I don't think we need trusts. Let's don't make it complicated when it doesn't have to be.
But isn't that what they're using in the court system is equity?
Sometimes they're running a criminal operation. They'll throw out whatever term they think they need to use at the time to seemingly justify it. They're not really running anything except that. They're running a private for-profit corporation, and that explains every single thing that they do. All the cruelty, it's all for profit. Now, as far as Trump, again, he's just running for officer in one of their cabals. I mean, it's not the only one. We're not the only so-called country in the world that isn't really a country. It's really a private for-profit corporation. Really, 150,000 private for-profit.
Now, isn't he running for the federal side, because the states are actually their own corporations at that, and it's the governors that are running the state. So Trump doesn't really have power over the states, even if he's in charge of the corporation on the federal side.
They're all interconnected. All the state of Ohio is connected by contract and by investments with just about every federal corporation that's out there. They invest. Corporations can invest in other corporations. And the so-called government corporations invest in their state of Ohio, for example, is heavily invested in Pfizer and other big pharma corporations. And those big pharma, those so-called private corporations are also invested in state of Ohio, state of New Hampshire, state of this, state of that, the Fraud and Death Administration, the FBI. They're all corporate. They're all for profit. And if you want to get technical and you want to rely on rights from the Constitution, which they laugh at you about too. So you can look at Article 1, Section 8, and they designate certain powers that they're going to give themselves, which in itself is ridiculous. But let's say that they have the authority to do that. Article 1, Section 8 never authorized the FBI, the CIA, the DOJ, or NASA, NSA, any of those. And they're not even trying. They're just creating these entities out of nowhere without any authority, certainly not any authority from us. They're creating, military corporations. Your National Guard, it's not yours, it's their National Guard, is, a bunch of mercenaries. And,
right, and we're all inhabitants anyways. We're not 14th Amendment citizen, period.
We're not even, I think they've co-opted the term inhabitants. So now, all that said, we could call ourselves anything we want. We're the people. We could call ourselves persons if we wanted to, as long as we define the term, and we can say persons means people. I don't think we want to do that, though. I'm okay with them defining persons and let them, because all their statutes and codes apply to persons. So that I'm okay with that,
So did you guys establish like a constitution amongst you? How is the structure go where people abide by God's law?
We never needed a constitution to begin with. We probably never even needed the original Articles of Confederation.
So do you have like a compact with the people? Because that's what we don't have now. There's no compact with the people. People never signed anything.
Right. And when we formed our court, we gave public notice and as broadly as we knew how to do online, which is far greater notice than you could get posting in the legal news, for example.
Right, an international notice.
But yeah, an actual written notice. You can see our notices. We also gave notice to cabal members, including Maureen O'Connor, who was then Chief Justice, so-called, of their Supreme Court of Ohio Tribunal, and the State of Ohio Attorney General. And isn't it interesting? Attorney Generals, they have a military name. Yeah, you can see
right.
Because they're operating military tribunals.
Right, and you call them and ask for help, and they're going to tell them you're not part of their association.
Yeah, you're not. And who would want to be? I mean, their help doesn't look much like help. When we tried to go, you ask for help from them, and you're going to get screwed 9 times out of 10. Now, if it serves the profit incentives of their corporation to help you, it improves the public goodwill or something like that. Yet you might, in some instances, be able to get a success. Yes, you might, maybe. But is it something you can take to the bank? No.
I think that's coming further and further away, though, it looks like, as they keep doing what they're doing. There used to be a lot more, but you're seeing a lot less and more children taken for whatever reason they deem necessary.
Yeah, I think more children are being taken. And now I have seen that stop. If you, like anything, if you catch it, if you nip it in the bud. I was approached by a woman in Ohio, and she got one of those little cards from the CPS, so we call them Children's Services in Ohio, and they wanted to talk to her about her granddaughter, and of course she panicked, and we did up just an informal notice, and she hadn't even corrected her status, so this shouldn't have even worked, but time was of the essence, and we prepared that, and I've got a generic version of it. And if you think that they're about to pounce, we fax that to everybody who might be part of the pouncing. The so-called sheriff, who also worked for the corporation, the so-called police chief, the head of the CPS corporation. Anybody who, and remember, when you serve one man or woman, you've served all their underlings and all their superiors.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So you get a whole lot of traction with it that way.
Where are you serving them at? Their registered agent? Where? Their home address?
Sometimes we serve them in person. Now, if they work at the courthouse, we go to, sometimes we'll get somebody to go to the courthouse, and they don't have to serve them in person. They'll serve their agent, which is their court clerk.
Right.
And she's going to be the agent for all of them that work over there. And or we get them in person if we can, or there's a lot of ways. We've tried them all, and because they're running from us, we can tell they're running from us because
They
they're
sure
always
are.
email addresses, and
We're trying
Yeah,
to
a lot of
block,
things are hid now.
block.
Before you could find, their, like you said, their email addresses or their addresses, and now it's like they don't want to give their last name or their bar number even.
No.
or they'll give
Well,
like this woman that is harassing and torturing Roger Hilligus. Her name is S. Hoeft, Heft, and she's supposedly the director of nursing at NAFCare, and she's personally on the hook, in our notices of liability. I just learned her name, but we've already named the CEO of NAFCare, and who's actually out of Alabama, and so notice to him is notice to her, and then we'll get a judgment, and we'll do the things we need to do to get that enforced. They have a garnishment proceeding. They got people they pay to implement that, and they might work for that cabal and owe their duty to the cabal, but we can serve them as people and say, here's our certificate of judgment, and they can put liens on property. And if they won't, we can serve the people who run all the title companies in the county where the judgment debtors live. So
yeah, I think some people were trying to put liens on judges and all. They have no idea what they're doing, and now they're in jail, right? So
the people who are putting liens are jumping the gun. Typically, that this was the Anna von Reitz induced Colorado 9. She was telling them to put, pre-judgment liens on various cabal members, and that's ridiculous. You don't put a lien on somebody's property or garnish their wages unless you have a judgment. You've given them due process. You gave them an opportunity.
right, due process. We want due process. We still have to give them due process, and we still have to be in honor, right?
Yes, we still have to be in honor. Now, there's some common law people who are so-called that will tell you, well, they didn't give us due process, so why should we have to give them due process? Because we're better than they are. That's why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because that's what
God tells us to.
Yeah, right. Fairness. It's just fairness.
Doing the right thing.
Yeah. Do unto others as you have them do unto you. That's the rule.
Exactly.
Common law. Common law is not hard. If you can understand the golden rule, if you can understand not treating these corporate criminals like they're gods, bowing down to them and standing up when they enter the room in their black dresses. So we can't put other gods above the one true living God. And we don't, and if we do all those things, we're going to also want to keep the 10 Commandments. But I think Jesus said, if we, it can all be boiled down to the golden rule. So that's not hard to understand, except for the cabal members, and they twist themselves into a pretzel to find some kind of theory under which they can justify violating that fundamental spiritual principle and principle, set forth in the law of God. Even if you're not a Christian, doesn't everybody know that societies don't function? People can't live together if the people don't treat one another the way they want to be treated. Things
right.
fall
Do no harm, right? That's really as easy as it is. Do no harm to others.
It's pretty simple. Pretty simple.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you guys for having us on. And if you don't mind, I'd like to just remind people that John has court on Monday, the 26th at 1:30 Eastern. And let me get a number if people can call. And then if we could work behind the scenes, maybe we could do some kind of liability letter or something. Catherine, maybe we can help out. Maybe we can't.
As I've told someone who was advocating for him, I would be happy to help if he even wants my help. And he may not be willing to. There's a lot of ego in people doing common law, and
I think he just thinks he's doing the right thing, and he knows what he's doing. So I don't see why he wouldn't be open to it.
It's paperwork, and trust me, he knows quite a bit, but not enough. And I saw the traffic stop too.
Yes, I sent that over. Okay, so the number is 855-212-1234, and that is at the Stratford County District 7th Court on Thomas Street in Dover, New Hampshire. And again, it's on Monday at 1:30, June 26th. And his docket number, for those of you that would like to look up the case, is 432-2023-CR627. And it's with Judge Bradley. I'm hoping that it'll be on some kind of online also, but who knows? They don't like him speaking out very well, so they probably will have it closed online at least.
Luciana is good at getting them to put to live stream their stuff. What have you done, Luciana?
I'm sorry, what have I done?
What have you done to get them to live stream so-called court proceedings?
Well, some courts say we've run across, when you request the video recording of what happened at the court that day, they'll tell you, we only video recorded, somebody requests it. So ahead of time, before you know that case is going to court, you want to make sure you have it documented. So you send an email or record the call of you calling in or emailing them, making a public records request that you are requesting that court hearing is video recorded. So, and then afterwards, request a video recording of that hearing and ask them if they do live stream, look into whether or not they live stream. Some do, some do not live stream. And if they do, ask them where you can go to watch the live stream. And if they don't live stream, then ask them to make sure they did. Every court.
They did during COVID, so they shouldn't have an excuse now, right?
They can video record.
So is that something you'd be willing to help to see if you can get them to live stream it?
Sure.
That would be really helpful.
Okay. When is it again?
Monday, June 26th at 1:30 Eastern time.
Okay, we'll see what we could do. Okay.
That would be awesome. I greatly appreciate it.
What was your relationship? What was your relation to John?
Really good friends for a few years now. He lost his children too, and then fighting with his ex-wife that was part of the elite. Of course, he started speaking out. They actually asked him to be a bar attorney, and he turned them down. So, and then with the corruption with Mike Gill are the same people that have came after him. So it's all connected.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate you guys having us on, and if you'd like us to come back, just let us know. We'd be welcome to. So appreciate it.
Tracy. Thank you.
We're working with Break the Chain right now, and we have a lot of CPS and corruption stories coming out on a community network television show. It airs every Tuesday and Thursday, so I can share that information with you too.
Yeah, the stories are endless. Of people
just hoping that giving people a platform that actually maybe wasn't able to speak up then or feel comfortable now is what we're all about. And then it wakes up other people, because it's not just one or two stories, right? And then with everybody streamlining it and getting it on their social media and sharing it, it just, your neighbor now starts seeing it's not just you, it's all over. And that's where it's at.
I was telling Catherine today, I haven't been active on my Facebook page probably since October or so. And I was telling her, I was looking through Facebook, through someone else's page, and I could see some of the same people that I had met through Facebook 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and we became friends because we're battling this same monster. You know,
Right. Mhm.
they've abused and stolen their children. They've taken their property. They've taken their elderly mother and stolen their estate and drugged them up in psych ward. It's disgusting.
Endless. Right.
I mean, what I have learned in these past few years. And I was telling Catherine, I was thinking about getting back on. You know, I miss a lot of the people, but I had just yesterday was on someone's Facebook page, and I was looking, and I could see these same people that I made friends with for years, and we were all exposing everything that's going on. And I was telling Catherine, it breaks my heart to go back in there after being away for 6 months, and I see the same people exposing the same things, and still no justice. There has to be a road to a solution, and that's what we have to stay focused on. And because there's so, I mean, the exposure, there's so much of it. It's endless. It's endless. It's endless, and it's frightening. It's really frightening, and it's not going to end. It gets worse, and it gets worse every year. So obviously, exposing it maybe opens the eyes of people who didn't know about it, you know. But it's not getting justice for the people who are deep involved in.
Right. Well, there's just more options to expose it now, where Facebook is not going to just expose it. It's got to be multiple platforms for people to see it, because the mainstream media, you know, is way powerful than we are.
Well, it's more exposure may not provide more remedy. It may provide increased fear, increased panic, increased terror. I think what we have to expose is the solutions, and at our local level, because if we have a common law court and common law grand juries and in a community, and can you imagine somebody who's occupying the position of sheriff, and he starts participating in one of these CPS abductions, and the community issues
rallies behind him. Yep.
Resentment. He has to do business with these people in the community. Do you think he really wants to go there? Do you think he wants to be labeled as a kidnapper because he's aiding and abetting in it? You know,
right.
But it doesn't. I can threaten Joe Biden all day long for, you know, his role in human trafficking, but I'm not going to have as much of an impact as I do on the local guys. That's where we, the people, have an impact. And
now it's just getting the people to unite together, one common goal, and that is to, you know, the children, you would think would be the common goal right there, nothing else.
My experience in the 90s and thereafter was because I was telling people in the 90s about the Holocaust against children. People don't give a rat's rear end about their children, or particularly not other people's children. They don't. Most people don't.
Until they come to your door, right?
Until they come to your door, and then, oh, it's so terrible, it's so awful, and I don't know what to do. Yeah.
Well, and most still think CPS is a good organization and they're there to help. They have no idea because they don't want to look either.
Yeah, they want to blame the victim. They want to bash the victim. It couldn't happen to me. Yeah, so I'll look the other way. And that's still the mindset of a lot of people.
Right. But now you got the transgender, you know, added to that. So people are looking because their kids were in the school and they're, you know, they're part of it because they're there. So it affects their child. So I think we got more people more than ever. But what have they done? Anybody that stands up, we're now an enemy combatant, right? We're now terrorists for speaking out.
Yeah, they can call us anything they want and it doesn't make it true.
Correct.
So yeah, I think we packed the most punch. Look at this that Luciana just put up on the screen. This was where they had the guy on the ground is the county sheriff. Okay.
Yeah. Well, this is what needs to happen, and we need to let everybody out of jail that is in jail and use their jails and put them in it. Come on now.
Well, we let's do it in an orderly manner so that nobody's going to tell us we committed some act of insurrection. We don't want to be
Well, exactly. Peacefully, and we follow the law. I mean, period.
We do it with a court order. And
Right.
nobody has ever told us that any of our court judgments aren't judgments, because they are.
Well, they're using legalese. We would be using actual law.
Yeah. And we use their
And
admissions.
that's the difference. Yeah. Well, this was very informative. I really appreciate your guys' time and having us on and getting the word out, because that's what it's all about. Uniting the people.
Okay.
And having resolutions and different ways of attack. Peaceful attack. I'm talking about,
Yeah.
From exposing to resolutions to getting out public, forming assemblies, whatever it may be.
I will bring to your attention, for those who think that the people themselves forming a court is somehow unlawful, forming our own courts is the only thing that in the early days of this corporate takeover saved the life of one Confederate soldier, the matter of Ex parte Milligan, 71 U.S. 2, 1866. I don't cite it because it's authority. It's not authority. It's authority for them. It's not authority for us. But it contains an important admission. They admitted that that they could not impose military tribunals on us where we have an up and running civilian court. That was their word, civilian court. What's a civilian court? A court that isn't a military tribunal. And that's what we have. It's U.S. Supreme Court decision, 1866, in Ex parte Milligan. So nobody can say we don't, it's not valid, that we're not able to do it. They've admitted that in Chisholm versus Georgia, 1793, that we are the people who would be doing it. So, we just got to do it. And, you can't be lazy, and, you got to be willing to extricate yourself from the system, because frankly, I don't want to work with you if you haven't, because I could never trust you. If you have not extricated yourself from the system, then you obviously don't know how to defend yourself, how to prevent them from going after you. And then you're gonna throw everybody under the bus to defend yourself. No, thank you. That's why that's one reason we require people on our court to correct their status.
Well, if you do have people on the court and they haven't corrected their status, what authority do they have to make that decision correct?
We have people on our court who have not corrected their status. Nobody on our court has failed to correct their status. They have all done so, and you can verify that for yourself by going to our website and look at the status correction documents. All 10 of our members have corrected their status, and their status correction documents are posted. We redacted their addresses.
And you said there was like 25 people for the grand jury in your county, correct?
It has been like 2 years, almost 2 years of hard labor to get those 10 to be on our court. And we sweeten the deal too, we will help you with your current problem and help you deal with it correctly, but you have to correct your status, and you have to then take the oath of office and become a member of our court. And some people will do that, 10 people in a couple of years. But I think it's accelerating. The interest level I can see is growing.
Yeah, I think this is the time.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Okay.
What a time to be alive, you say, right?
Yeah.
There we go.
What a time to be alive. That's right.
Well, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
And thank you, Tracy. Thank you so much for being
You're welcome.
on with us.
I look forward to talking to you guys behind the scenes.
Definitely. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, our contact information is on the website too. So.
Okay, awesome. God bless you guys.
God bless
God
you
bless
too,
you.
Tracy. Thank you. Well, Catherine,
Okay, well, you have any final thoughts?
I really do. I do think that this is we're getting somewhere. We're getting a lot of feedback. We're getting a lot of inquiries as to how to do this. We're looking at other states who are reaching out to us, and they're moving quickly
Yeah, I'm
to do
surprised to
what
hear
we're
that.
doing. And
Texas.
I mean, there's people willing to jump in and help them do their website and help them find the information. And so I think that God is with us. I know we're doing the right thing. And of course, we always wish, God, can you move just a little bit faster, but I know that he's working on things in the background that need to be done so that when he gives us that push and we have major success, there's not going to be these little things in the background that are going to be able to mess up what we're doing. So everything in God's timing,
Yes, absolutely. He's in control over this, because I think ultimately he wants us to take the reins. He told us that right at the beginning.
Yes. So we keep moving forward.
Right.
Okay.
Well, we'll be back this time next week for another broadcast, and then the replay of this will be posted probably sometime tomorrow on YouTube.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Yeah.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Catherine.
You.
And we will all meet up next Thursday here at 9 p.m. at WLJA Common Law Under God. God bless you all.